It's kind of like saving for retirement. If you just take it out of your check, you never miss it, it goes in there, stored away for a rainy day. But if you say, you know what, I'll wait to the end of the month and see how much I have left, and then I'll put it in my, you're not going to have anything left, right? You honor your first and your best, usually with your retirement plan. You should also do with your tithes to the Lord. All right, in the New Testament, this theme is repeated, not as explicitly, but 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I directed the churches in Galatia, you are also to do, on the first day of every week, you put aside something and store it up, as you may prosper. So there will be no collecting when I come. What Paul's saying is, you give of your first fruits, and you give in proportion to your income, right? So those who are blessed with more should apportion more for the work of the Lord, those less, etc. But again, it's this idea of honoring God with your first fruits. Well, that being said, what are we talking about if we're talking about we die, whatever we have squirreled up over the years in our accounts, what's going to happen to that money? Where should that go? If first fruits giving is what I give ahead and first to the Lord, then maybe our estate planning could be considered our last fruits giving, right? Our last fruits giving. We don't get to take it with us, that's for sure. Now, I'm going to turn to another parable here of the rich fool in Luke 12. You know this one. Jesus warns, be on your guard against covetousness. Life does not consist of the abundance of possessions. And he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what will I do? I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I'll do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, and drink, and be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and these things you have prepared. So whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. So I guess probably there's some preachers out there that would say that this is an injunction against ever saving up for retirement or your estate plan. Right? Why store up treasures that are only for this earth? Because you can't take them with you if you have too much left. I won't go that far, much to Teresa and Bruce's relief, right? Don't save for retirement. No, you could try to be, look, what's the difference between someone who says, look, I would like to save some for retirement so that someday, maybe when my body is not able or whatever, I have some means to subsist. What's the difference between that and someone who says, throw care to the wind. We go to Disneyland every year. It's $15,000 to $20,000 bill, but we enjoy it, so that's great, right? So, people could throw stones at those who save up for retirement as if, well, the Bible says you shouldn't store up treasures on earth, but if that is how they want to use their money versus someone else who says, I'm going to blow it all on enjoyment right now, who's to judge? So I'm not saying don't store up for retirement, but I think the key to this verse that I want to highlight is Jesus says, whose will they be? And when I went through the Transfer the Blessings ministry, one of the things that I heard echoing my ears is, giving all your nest egg to your children in one foul swoop is not always the wisest thing to do with your money. It sometimes, maybe you'll talk about this, can really divide children, ruin them. They're not always going to be, they're not going to probably be near as wise with it as you were. You're not going to live to see it, but your descendants will. So maybe part of it would be a good idea to bless your church with some of what this is happening. I love hospice people. They are wonderful, wonderful ministers at the end of life. They're there 24/7, like a pastor can't be. But what I've noticed over the years is many, many, many memorials at funerals are designated not to the church, but to the hospice care. Because they happen to be the last people in the house and they cared so beautifully for their loved one. Where do you want to make your memorials? Oh, let's give it to hospice. There's nothing wrong with that. But what about the church that nourished you in word and sacrament all these years? What about providing for them in the future when the dark times are coming, or the nuns? Did you read about the nuns in the Lutheran Witness? The percentage of people in the next generation that are Christians? Not very high. The church is going to need the funds of this generation to get through those times. So they can call a pastor who exists to serve them. So he's not a worker priest trying to do a job and maybe throw a sermon together on the side. Think about that. Whose will these be? I'm not saying don't give your children anything. but think of your church. And then this last thing I'll get off the stage here. Jesus says in Luke 14, when you give a dinner or banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers, your relatives, your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. So, any people we give to on this earth could potentially repay us. Right? We loan some money to a friend, maybe he gets a windfall later, he remembers you and he blesses you back. You give to your church, the church knows you're a big giver, and so when you have a little opinion about the next project, they're going to listen hard because, you use your money to bless this church. Those are all ways, you may not have that in mind to twist people's arm, but when you give in this earth, the truth is that could be reciprocated. But when you give at the end of your life, when you give of your last fruits, guess what? Nobody can do for you. Reciprocate that. Because you're in the ground, right? So I think that's another way to think about last fruits giving is that though you cannot be repaid anymore in this earthly life, yet you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. You choose to honor the ministry of the Lord through your estate planning, Jesus will honor that in eternity, somehow, some way. And I don't think that's like bad motivation. Oh, if I honor God, maybe I get a closer seat at the concert Jesus puts on or something. I mean, I'm not just making this stuff up, but there's worse motivations than to think, great is your reward in heaven. I bet the reward there will be greater than it is now, and so maybe that's something I should consider and think about. And so just a few things to set the tone. I went 11 minutes, mic to you. So.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Bruce Hanson, and I am Zion's representative to the LCMS Foundation. I work with Teresa on Transfer the Blessings program. And it's so great to see everybody here this morning. I'm sure if you weren't, you'd be somewhere else. So thanks very much for coming. There's a lot to cover this morning, a lot of good information. I just want to share a little bit about my experiences with this process. Sue and I have gone through Transfer the Blessing, and we've experienced the benefits of this process in our lives, and I want to share a little bit about that as well. Well, we have the Transfer the Blessing program here at Zion. Really, three main goals go with the program: to leave a legacy of faith. Make sure that part of this process includes a message to your family, to your loved ones, about your faith, what you believe, your commitment to God's ministry. And second, bless the family with the gifts that God has given you. And thirdly, bless those important ministries that you have in your life and you want to continue to support. I think it's important to remember, as Pastor said, is that a gift at the end of your life and being prepared to make that gift can give you the joy and peace of knowing that those blessings are available for years to come. I experienced this process, Sue and I did, when both of our parents were called home. My mom and dad, Sue's mom and dad have passed, and as we went through dealing with the estates, it was not an unpleasant process because they had in place wills, they had in place powers of attorneys, and the family was able to, in a very good way, work through that process. One of the things that this Transfer the Blessing program will help develop for each of you. In my mom's case in particular, Mom had a serious stroke at 92 years old. In the family, I can remember sitting in the emergency room and the doctors asking, well, here's the options, here's what we do. And then, fortunately, we were pulled aside by a hospice person, and they asked, well, does your mother have a health care directive? And we said, yes, she does. And so, and they made it real clear that, well, you guys don't need to anguish over what's next. Your mother has laid it out for you very clearly, and you need to follow that. That's one of the aspects of this program, is talking about, thinking about putting in place a health care directive. Well, Sue and I went through the process. We cataloged the God's blessings that we had. We worked with Jim Brockman at the time to put together a plan, considered many different options. We ended up with establishing a will. We ended up putting together a revocable trust, partially in response to what Pastor Fevercorn mentioned, is you don't necessarily want to endow your loved ones with your entire estate all at once. So the trusts help us work through that. We put together a power of attorney, and who will take charge in the event we're not able to anymore. And we also put together healthcare directives for each of us. And we went through the process, got all the paperwork done, and we've had one review since then and made a few changes. And that's another thing about the process, is you are able to make changes as life events change, as family changes, and the like. In our plan, we made it clear in the documents and to our family that part of God's blessings that He has bestowed on Sue and I over the last 45-some years, we want to share with ministries here at Zion, specifically Zion's Endowment Fund. We also are going to share with Lutheran High School of St. Charles, and we're also have our documents set up to share with St. Louis Seminary. So that's how we've set up our plan. Everybody will and can be different in how they approach all this stuff. So it's not an easy process. It's a lot of work, coordinating with your financial counselors, going through an inventory, doing things like changing your title on your car to designate the right beneficiary, your 401k plans, making sure your life insurance policy. It's all good stuff that needs to be done. So I encourage you to think about, if you've already got some, to take a look, to take advantage of the partnership we have with the foundation and Teresa Nelson to explore current tax advantage approaches to a lifetime plan for giving. I often in my life ended up being a procrastinator. I tried to go to courses to help me through that, but really never found the time to do that. But don't wait. We waited till our late 50s, but it was a huge relief when we had that done. So the process here is private, it's confidential, it's full of good, solid information and other resources. So at this point, let me introduce Teresa Nelson with the LCMS Foundation. She's worked, I don't know how many have worked with Teresa or through the Lifetime Plan for Giving Transfer the Vesting Program. Oh, good, good. So here's Teresa.
You gotta move that one away because I started to.
Okay.
It started to hum when I got up and had this one on, so. Okay. Good morning. Thanks, Pastor Fevercorn, Bruce, for sharing a little bit about what Transfer the Blessings is all about. So glad to have you all with us this morning. Get my tools ready to roll here. I am Teresa Nelson. As it says, I have been with the foundation off and on for 14 and a half years. Back in the St. Louis area, working here at Zion for the last 5 years. My life has been a bit of an adventure. I was an Iowa farm kid, grew up in Northwest Iowa. So went off to a college campus of 25,000 at Iowa State. God moved me then from Iowa to Nebraska to Missouri to Wisconsin, no, Illinois, Wisconsin. I don't even know where I lived. How about that? But God's adventure was just amazing, and it's so fun to look back now and see how He used all of those pieces to put together the skills, the gifts, to grow the gifts that He had given me that I might serve Him doing Transfer the Blessings and helping families, helping congregations make a difference for the kingdom. I have a little bit of a unique life right now in that I don't have any pets, kids, or spouse. So I get to hang out with international students and refugees. They have become my family. I have a beautiful granddaughter that lives in San Jose, California. Her mom and I became buddies at Arizona State when I was out there, and she's now my Indian granddaughter, and when I was at the wedding in India for her mom and dad, I was the American mom and treated as such. So that's my family, as well as all of you. When I work with you, I feel like you become great friends, and so that's just a little bit about me, a little bit about the foundation. We've been around since 1958. We were put into being through a synodical resolution. We have two jobs. One of those is to help congregations, organizations, ministries invest their money. That's one of the pieces we were charged with. The second is the gift planning, and that's really what we're going to talk more about today. That's helping families take a look at the blessings God has given them. So those are the two things that the foundation does, and a whole lot of other things too, but those are the two primary pillars of it. So what's today going to look like? You might be going, well, what's this all about, and why do I want to make a gift in my estate plan, and why haven't I done that? Or maybe it's, how can the LCMS Foundation help me with that? And questions. If you have any questions as we're going, please feel free to ask at any time during it. It's fine to interrupt. So we're going to get started. Pastor started us with some stewardship lesson. I'm going to ask you to read a couple Bible verses with me, because stewardship is really what Transfer the Blessings is about. It's not, stewardship, as you all know, is not just our finances. It's really all of the blessing. It's our time, it's our treasures, it's our talents. How do we use those for the Lord? So we're going to read backwards to some extent. We're going to start with Psalm 24. Would you read that with me, please? The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Okay, so everything is God's. It's all His. He asks us to manage it. So let's take a look at Genesis 2. How does He tell us to take care of it? The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. So we're supposed to take care of those blessings. Well, what does that look like? How do we do that? Might be through an estate plan. An estate plan is really organizing the blessings that God has given you so that your family is taken care of, so that they bless others. Because some of the things we do can actually cause challenges and struggles and fights amongst our family, depending upon how we put our plan together. So doing it, putting a will and a trust and different things together, an estate plan is helping take care of things for your family so that they don't have to worry about it when God calls you home, because they're going to be dealing with enough other things. So what is gift planning? How is that different than estate planning? Gift planning is making sure you're making the best gifts to family, the best gifts to ministry, so that you take advantage of tax opportunities and stretching things over time so that you can best care for your family. Most of us know that there's someone in our family that maybe isn't as good at money management as the others. Or maybe Satan has had a little role in our family because he likes to get in there and stir things up. And maybe we have family that have addiction issues and we need to protect them from themselves. That's where the gift planning, I mean, the estate planning is definitely part of that too, but the gift planning really gets at your heart. What's really in your heart? What has God placed there to care for? How does He desire for you to care for your family and the ministries that you love? Okay, so we've been charged with taking care of everything that God has blessed us with. How are we doing it? That 100%. We're supposed to take care of 100% of what He has given us with. Did you know that if we divided this room in half, maybe we're not quite half here, but 50% of you don't have a will or a trust? Doesn't matter what room I'm standing in, that is across the board. State of Missouri has one for you. I guarantee it doesn't include Zion. And it may not take care of your kiddos the way you want them to either. So, why don't people have a plan? And I get it. Attorneys can be scary. We all think they're scary. If you know some, you've got a sweet one here in this congregation that is not scary at all. Little Miss Lorna is not scary. She's very kind. I've got a list of attorneys that I have worked with over the years so that they don't have to be scary people. It's complicated. I don't even know where to start. It's going to cost a lot of money. I don't have anything. Why would I need a will? Sometimes the less you have, the more you need to have a plan of how to handle it. So those are all reasons we don't get around to doing it, but it really doesn't have to be that hard. I'm here to help. My services are free. I will walk through the process with you so that you are set to go. Some of you already have a plan in place, and that is awesome. Did you know that those of you that have a plan, about 70% of you haven't reviewed it in a very long time and it needs a good look. Needs to be updated, okay? Dust it off, pull it out, we'll read through it. The laws have changed. There's a lot of laws that have changed that might affect your plan. So I'm happy to review a plan. That's part of our services to you. And I can tell you that over the last 5 years, I've read an awful lot of wills and trusts. And things start to pop out of, oh, I wonder if they realize it says this. Oh, what does that mean? What does that do? And so we get a chance to talk through it and make sure it's doing what you want it to do. And lastly, if you have a plan and you work with an attorney to put it together, only about 7 to 12% of those have a charitable gift in them. And why is that? I didn't think about it. The attorney didn't ask me. And how often when you sit, now, if you sit with Miss Lorna, she's going to ask you that question. But most attorneys don't say, do you have charitable intent? Do you want to be philanthropic when you pass away? So you've never been asked, didn't know how, didn't know you could. Well, part of my job is to find out what you want to do and help you find the best way to do that. And I promise to do that. So this is some of what Bruce talked about. None of the planning that we do matters at all if faith isn't there, right? Our kids, we can hand them all the money in the world, but if they don't know Jesus, what's that money going to do for them? Nothing. So share your faith. Write a family blessing letter that shares your faith, that tells them how important they are to you, how much you love them, and how much you love the Lord and want them to be in heaven with you someday. Making sure you're making the best gifts to family. What is the best gift to a family member? What is the best gift for ministry? We'll talk about some examples of that in just a little bit. So it's a 4-part process. The first step of this process as we meet is the discovery. You fill out a survey, answer a bunch of questions. As Bruce said, it's all private, it's all confidential. We gather all this information. It's the blessings you have in your children. It's the blessings financially the Lord has given you. What are your goals? We put those together. How does that work? Okay? I come back with a snapshot of, if you pass away today, here's what's going to happen. Okay? So we look at, here's where it's at today, whether it's the state of Missouri's will for you or your will. Here's what's going to happen. Then, we also look at some of the ways that you can meet those goals. What options and opportunities are out there for you to meet your goals? We'll look at those. All of this is covered in prayer. We will pray during our meetings together. I pray as I'm working on it that the Lord would guide. Without His guidance, we don't know. So we need Him to show us where He wants you to be. The next step is the summary. That's putting all the details together for the attorney. Here's the things that we want to do. And then implementation. Implementation is not just signing those documents, because that does have to be done. They all have to be signed, witnessed, notarized, but also, as Bruce was saying, sometimes it means a beneficiary change. Sometimes it means adding a transfer on death. Maybe it's an ownership change. I will walk with you through all of that to make sure you get it all done. Because one of the things I see most often in those reviews is you've got a beautiful will, you've got a beautiful trust. Oh, the trust is empty. You pass away. How are we going to fill that trust up? It all has to go through probate to get into the trust because you didn't fund it. So, you went to all the work of creating it for avoiding probate, and now you have to do probate anyway. So, we'll just help you get all those little pieces in line. Don't worry. Yes, it's a bit of work, but it's not overwhelming. We can walk through it, talk through it to make it happen for you. Okay, a lifetime plan for giving for your family. What might that consist of? As Bruce says, there's probably going to be a power of attorney in it. In fact, if you have a child off at college right now, they should have a power of attorney. They're over 18. You can't make financial or healthcare decisions for them anymore without getting approval, without going to court to get assigned that role. Healthcare. Who do you want making your healthcare decisions? Your doctor or your family? Family can talk to pastor, pray with you, guide you in making some of those decisions. You can lay out what your wishes are. Okay. Guardians. Some of you in this room need guardians for your children. The piece of that puzzle is, if you don't name your guardians, the court does. Your family's going to appeal to have them. Someone might be the perfect sibling to raise your children if you're not able to. Some of us have a sibling that maybe our morals and values don't really align, and we would prefer that sibling is not the one raising our child. But the courts may grant them that because they come asking. So let's get those kiddos protected. If you've got grandkiddos that aren't protected, let's talk to your kids and get them involved in this process so they can name the guardians for their kiddos. Might include a will. It will definitely include a will. It might include a revocable living trust. And then reviewing those beneficiaries. That is the biggest. Some of the fun stuff I've seen over the years, sit down at the table. I don't know if it's fun. Sometimes it's kind of scary. Sit down at the table. Oh, my parents are the beneficiary of my life insurance. Oh, but you have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. Who's going to take care of them? Well, my parents will give all that money to them. They will do it. We don't know that. I mean, yes, we'd like to think they will, but they might not. Not. You know, Satan loves to have a good temptation. He can wave in front of our faces and pull us astray. Plus, now it becomes a gifting issue of how much can the grandparents give back to the grandkids without tax laws coming. Just, they need to be reviewed. It really never hurts to review them. I've seen a couple get married. One spouse has a will, the other one does not. Doesn't update the will. Everything goes to the siblings because wife wasn't there when it all was created. It can happen. You know, stuff happens. So it's a great chance to review it, make sure it's all doing what you want it to do. Okay, so how can you make a gift? What do those gifts look like? Some of these terms are brand new to you. Some of them you've heard before. Some of them sound like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Teresa. A bequest. It's a gift. It's a gift at the end of your life to the organizations of your choice. It can be done in lots of different ways. We'll take a look at those. It might be a charitable trust. Wow, that sounds complicated. A trust? Doesn't have to be. It can be super simple, and it allows you to spread gifts to your family out over time. So, what is a bequest? Might be a percentage from your will or living trust. Well, this is a fun one. Years ago, I was working with Roy and Doris, and they had a beautiful gift in their revocable living trust for the charities they loved. They were passionate about the campus ministry at Michigan. They loved their home congregation. There were things that really got them excited in ministry. They had a 10% tithe of their estate plan to those ministries at the end of life. But as we looked through everything, their estate was about $1.6 million, so they were assuming a $160,000 gift. But all of their retirement assets, which were the largest part of their estate, were beneficiary to each other and then straight to the kids. Guess what? They don't go through that trust. They don't get counted unless there's special language in there. They don't get counted as part of that gift. So what they thought was a $160,000 gift ended up being about $65,000. We worked it. We fixed it. We got it to do what they wanted it to do. But just some of that crazy stuff that happens. Can be a beneficiary designation on life insurance. It could be a ministry-owned life insurance policy. Maybe Zion owns a policy on your life. You pay the premiums to Zion, you can deduct those premiums. Maybe it's just designating an asset to ministry. Maybe you have a vacation home, or some farmland, or a cool car that's worth a lot of money. You can actually gift things like that. Maybe it's grain or livestock. All of that can be gifted to ministry and be a gift, and we can help you do that. All right, any questions so far? All right, you haven't fallen asleep and your eyes haven't rolled back to the back of your head quite yet. So, all right, let's take a look at Jerry and Susan. Jerry and Susan have an estate. They want to avoid lump sum distribution to their heirs of their tax-deferred assets, so their 401k and their IRA. They want to include a gift to ministry in their plan. Tax-deferred assets really were not intended for a lump sum gift to our children. It's taxable income. 85% of the people that receive an IRA gift don't stretch it out over time, they take it as a lump sum. Well, think about what the value is in your IRA or your 401k. You add that to an annual income for a child, they're going to lose a third of it right off the top. So a $100,000 gift becomes $66,000 pretty quick. Also, laws have changed, and it used to be if you inherited your parents' IRA, you could stretch it out over your lifetime. Now you can't, that's right. You get 10 years today. You got to withdraw it all in 10 years. It doesn't say when or how. You could still take it as a lump sum at year 10, but it all has to be withdrawn in 10 years. A charitable trust, like what Jerry and Susan are considering, allows the children to receive that income stream over 20 years instead of just 10. Spreads it out over time. So here's what it does. You can see Jerry and Susan's estate was valued at about $800,000. The children got $600,000 right away, divided between the kids. $200,000, their retirement assets, went into a charitable remainder trust. That pays an income stream to the kids for 20 years. At the end of that 20 years, that gift goes to the ministries of your choice. So you can stretch it out over time, help the kids manage it a little bit so it doesn't burn a hole in their pocket. I'm one of those. I can honestly say, it's better if I receive my money over time. It's better if they take my retirement money out before I ever see it. Help those, just think about it. You could be giving your kids a vacation, a fun vacation with their families every year with something like this. They wouldn't have to budget for that piece. They knew that they were getting this gift from mom and dad of $5,000 every year, or 10, whatever it might be, to take their kids on a vacation. Maybe it's paying for their college education of the grandchildren. Who knows? So you can see with this one, Jerry and Susan got to give their money away twice. They gave the $200,000 to the kids, and then they turned around at the end of the 20 years and gave the $200,000 to the charities and ministries of their choice. Okay, that's about all I got left, so we're good. All right. Some things to consider, some new laws that have changed yet again, because they'd like to do that to us to see how our memories work. Qualified charitable distributions. If you are over 70 and a half, you can take your required minimum distribution from your IRA. Only for IRAs, doesn't work with 401ks or TSAs, only your IRA. The company, if it's at Thrivent, sends the money directly to Zion, and you don't have to claim that money as income. And it satisfies your required minimum distribution. It can be bigger than your required minimum distribution. It can be smaller than your required minimum distribution, but you don't have to claim it as income. And keeping our income lower helps keep that tax bracket down. And you're giving to Zion anyway.
Question?
Oh, question, yes.
Okay, is that a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA that you avoid the tax?
So Roth does not have any taxation when it comes out.
Right.
So this is traditional IRAs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. There's also currently, as of this instant, because they, like I said, they change it frequently, there is no required minimum distribution on a Roth IRA either. So that'll sort out as the Roths have been around longer. Right now, most of the people retiring don't have a lot of Roth, so they're still sorting. Stretch or inherited, I already mentioned that. Over 10 years, it has to be, your traditional IRA has to be taken out. If your children inherit it, we can help you make that 20. Required minimum distributions. If you're already required to take them, you have to keep doing it. If you haven't yet started and you were born 1960 or earlier, you have now until you're 73 to start taking your required minimum distributions. And if you're born after 1960, it's now 75. That's one of those moving targets. It keeps changing regularly right now. Gifting appreciated assets. Let's run through that. After last year, there's maybe the appreciation on some of our assets isn't quite as great as what it was, but there's still some appreciated assets out there. Those make great gifts. Because let's say your stock, you've got 6,000 shares at $50 a share, it's worth $300,000 today. You bought it quite a while ago at $20 a share, so it only cost you $120,000. That's $180,000 of capital gains. You will have to pay taxes on that. And 15% would be the lowest capital gains tax rate. It could go up from there. The blessing of that is you paid $120,000 for it. If you were to gift it, your deduction would based on the current value, so you'd get a $300,000 charitable deduction. It really only cost you $120,000. And so ministry gets that full gift and doesn't have to pay any of the taxes. So that can be an appreciated anything. It can be appreciated land, stock, houses. if anybody is looking for an awesome place in Tahoe, I've got a condo for sale right now out in Tahoe. Someone just gifted their Tahoe condo. Can't get to it right now because of all their snow, but they're at the stage where they don't want to deal with it anymore. It's too much work. So they gifted it to the foundation. We're going to provide them with an income stream. They also get a great charitable deduction, and ministry will get an amazing gift when they pass away to heaven. I'm under the speaker. All right. My promise to you, I will pray with you. I will listen to you. I'm there for you. I will encourage you. Yes, sometimes it feels like a yucky dog at your heels because I will keep asking, are you ready? But you set the time frame. You tell me how quickly you want to get this done, and I'll help you get there. Okay? Confidential. Nobody knows, other than that when I walk into Zion, I now have a bunch of people I talk to. Okay, sometimes that's pretty obvious. Maybe I've been working with them and that's how I know them, but I'm not going to share with anyone specifically that I was working with such and such a family. Bruce chooses to share that. Pastor Fevercorn chose to share that. That's how that would be the only way it would be shared. Okay, I do not charge for my help. There is a packet in front of on your tables. Grab one. There's one for every family. Inside, there's some ideas of those family blessing letters. There's some design ideas. There's more about gift planning. The other piece you're going to see on the table, and I would ask each of you, and then I'm going to tell you about that. Then if you have questions, I'll answer them because I know some people will need to scoot off to worship. There is a survey. Help yourself to all the goodies too, the pens, the pads, all that's for all of you. If everyone that was here today would be willing to fill out this survey, it is really helpful for me. If you're ready to book an appointment and get started on this process, Teresa learned how to make a QR code. It's fancy, watch out. You can take a picture of that one, you can use the one on here. It takes you right to my calendar and you can book an appointment. Otherwise, please, your name, your information. Down at the bottom here it says, I felt the workshop was worthwhile. Okay. The next one, I don't have a will or a trust, but I would like to make one. If you check that, we'll follow up with you and schedule a time that's convenient. Maybe you have a will or trust and would like to review it. You can check that one. Or maybe you have a will or trust and it doesn't have a gift in it, but you would like there to be one. You can check that one. So if you fill those out for me, just so I know you were here. I don't cold call, so if you don't tell me you want me to call, I will not call. So you've got the QR code, you can schedule any time, but please fill out those, and you can leave them on your tables or hand them to Bruce. Either will be fine. Any other questions that we have today before we wrap up? Yes? Oh, that's a great question. How often should it be updated? I would suggest reviewing it every 5 years. 10 at the outside limit. It may or may not need updates, but it's just good to take a look, because how many times do we forget who's in there, and maybe they've passed away, or mom was going to be the guardian for my children and mom now uses a walker to get around. That's going to be an awful tough. So, yes.
So your service is actually getting us prepared for a visit to the
attorney.
Yes. Yep, that is true. I will get you ready, and I will go with you to the attorney if you want me to, and I would love to be there when you sign everything, because we get to celebrate and get it all done, and do all those next set of details that the attorneys don't typically work with you on, the beneficiary changes and the housing changes. They give you the how, but they don't help you, so.
And Angie was very helpful. What they provide the attorneys is very much an outline of what goes into the will, what goes into trust. And so you don't spend as much time, if you came in to an attorney cold, you're not going to spend as much time with that.
Yeah. Yes, well, yes, can be. Billable hours are expensive sometimes, although most attorneys have a flat fee for doing estate planning things, most. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Well, thank you all for being here. Have an amazing week. Love being at Zion, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thank you all very much. You can contact me as well.